guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a tough one. So, all right, a little background. You probably don't want me to be talking that much, but we gotta talk about it. So I am a dark circle girl. I have hereditary dark circles. I hate them more than anything. They are my biggest physical insecurity by far. They have been since for as long as I can remember, I think 10 years old. I have been wearing concealer since I was about 11 because they're so bad. There's nothing I can do about them. If I get enough sleep, they're still there. The worst part is that if I don't sleep, they look even worse. Like I literally look like somebody punched me in the eyes. So today I'm going to be showing you how I conceal them. Now, this is literally a rough video for me to do. I have to be totally honest with you guys. I have never once been on camera without at least a little bit of concealer underneath my eyes. I feel like I can finally be honest with you. If you watch my Instagram story or if you were live with me, I think last week, I did admit that to those of you that were watching me. So the fact that I've never been on camera showing like my actual dark circles is kind of crazy. So this is the first time that I'm doing it, and be nice. The plane. I'm so sick of planes. Anyway, so I'm going to share with you my tips and tricks. Now, the reason that I'm doing this video is because I am actually going to be going to I think it's called LA Beauty Skin Center. They're located in Glendale, California, and I'm going to finally be getting filler under my eyes. I'm going to be fixing my dark circles, and I'm doing this tomorrow. So I figured I would film this video before they were gone. The results are not permanent. It is temporary, but I think it lasts up to 6 months. And I will be filming it. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll be uploading, I guess, like my first vlog, sort of. I hate that word. So that's what's happening in my life right now. Let's get into it, because those of you who don't like follow me consistently are probably like, let's just talk about dark circles. Oh, we're gonna talk about dark circles. All right, guys, before we get into it, obviously, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, notification bell, all that stuff. All right, let's get into it. Okay. Looks a little extra crazy because I decided to put brows on, and they're a lot darker than they have been in the past. But you can get a sense of like how dark my eyes are. This is the first time that the first time that I have been on camera without any concealer at all. So typically I will put like at least a small amount underneath my eyes just to make it look like less horrible, because it looks really bad, doesn't it? I mean, I know they're not the worst in the entire world. I know that there are people out there who have them way worse than me. We've all seen like those crazy transformations on Instagram, but they're pretty bad. So I am my natural skin tone right now. This is as fair as it gets, which makes them obviously stand out a hell of a lot more. One of the reasons that I started using self tanner is because it makes my overall complexion darker, so it kind of makes them look slightly better, but like not that much better. Anyway, so let's just get into it. I'm gonna stop talking about it. The first thing that I'm going to be doing is priming my face. I did moisturize and I applied an eye cream. So my skin's pretty well hydrated. That is very important, but that was probably about, I don't know, maybe an hour, maybe a little bit over an hour ago now. I did apply an eye cream so I can feel like some hydration there, but I just want to add a little bit more. Hydrating your under eyes, if you are someone who is getting creasing, that's very important, because it could be the fact that your under eyes, the skin underneath your eyes, is very dry. That brings attention to fine lines, like placing, especially if you have very dark circles, you want like a more full coverage concealer. Dry skin and full coverage is a horrible combination. So you want to make sure that you are hydrating the skin. Basically your under eyes, for your foundation overall, that's going to result in the best looking makeup, the most natural looking makeup. However, you can go too far. You can overhydrate, which is not good. If you're going in with very heavy moisturizers or heavy oils or something like that, you're layering like a lot of heavy moisture, it's not going to fully absorb into your skin. A lot of it, the product is going to sit on top, and it might either combat with the concealer that you place underneath your eyes or your foundation and make it, not stick correctly or kind of slip, or that can cause creasing because the products will sort of mix together and then they sort of separate. So you can overhydrate. There is such thing. So it's really all about, experimenting, playing with different products that work for you. I'm gonna obviously share the ones that I have fallen in love with. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is go in with my absolute favorite under eye hydrating cream, sort of. This is the Stress Positive Eye Lift. This is by Dermalogica. I love their Intensive Eye Repair Eye Cream. It's a nice lightweight hydration. I used that in my last video, I think, if you guys saw that. I also love the Shiseido eye cream for nighttime. I love the It Cosmetics eye cream. I actually used that when I got out of the shower. So there's a lot of great eye creams out there, and and it's gonna take a little bit of, you know, trial and error. Obviously, everybody has their own preferences, but this is my favorite daytime. Like, it hydrates underneath my eyes, it absorbs, it feels cooling. Why is he running the water right now? This is very difficult for me. Like, you can really see all the flaws in my face, huh? Don't they make me look so tired and old and like I've had a really rough year. Oh my god. All right, anyway, so the applicator has like a massage. It feels very cooling. It's like really cold. So there's like a whole massage situation that you're supposed to do. If you go on their website, you can see. I'm very lazy, so I rarely do that. This does feel really nice though. So I typically, like, on most days, I will just put a little bit on my finger, about that much, maybe less. I don't know if that's like a small pea, perhaps. Maybe a little bit less, and then I just place this underneath my eyes. So right underneath my eyes, I do have some kind of like texture underneath my eyes. I don't know how well you guys can see that, and that can be very obvious if I don't appropriately hydrate. I also like to bring this like down my nose just because I use powder to brighten along my nose. So I don't want this area to be dry, otherwise it can be very obvious that I'm wearing a lot of makeup. So you want to make sure that you're using light patting motions, using your ring finger because it doesn't have that much pressure, and then make sure that you're like really working it into the skin. All right, so now I'm gonna let that set into the skin, absorb a little bit. If I go in with my concealer right now, like I said, it's going to kind of mix with this product. It's gonna cause creasing. It's gonna kind of like sit on top of the cream, and then it'll cause either creasing or separation, or it won't be good. So you wanna make sure that you're letting it absorb. So while that's absorbing, I'm going to prime the rest of my face. I'm actually gonna be using, this is like, I don't know if this is like it's called the Glow Formula Skin Hydrator by Kiehl's. I don't know what this is exactly, but I used it the other day and I really liked it, but it's got kind of a glow to it. So it's kind of flesh colored, and it has like sort of a little bit of pearl in it. So it just kind of gives you, I don't know, like a little bit of a glow. That smells interesting. And I'm also gonna take a little bit of this underneath my eyes just because it has like a little bit of a reflect. I don't know how well you guys can see the glow, but that's gonna help kind of like reflect the light. People who don't have like horrible dark circles, you can use like a light reflecting highlighter. Not highlighter, but you know what I mean, like those concealers that are meant for highlighting. The really lightweight ones like MAC. I can't remember what it's called. I used to use that back in the day. You can use something with a little bit of light reflection, and it kind of just like makes that area look a little more hydrated, and it brightens and it kind of like reflects the light, but it looks very natural. But we're gonna be doing a hell of a lot more than that today. And now just like my under eyes with primer, you wanna make sure that you're allowing it to set into your skin, for your skin to absorb it and create that barrier before we go in with any makeup products. Okay, so next we're gonna mess around a little bit with color correctors. Now, I am pretty new to these, so I'm going to kind of like show you guys how I've been using them, which is very tame, and kind of just explain why I started using them and what do I want to say about color correctors? Just kind of my theories about them, I guess. You guys have probably seen those crazy videos where people are using like a million different colors on their face. They go underneath their eyes with like red lipstick and stuff, and then they blend it all out, and then supposedly their makeup looks beautiful at the end. It's bullshit. It's clickbait. Like, that is clickbait. You should not be using like a heavy red lipstick underneath your eyes. That's heavy and it's got oils in it and it's not going to mix well, and I'm convinced that they just like wipe that shit off. So I was watching Jordan Liberty's video recently about color correcting. I never really understood why people would use peach or like orange color correctors underneath their eyes. It didn't make any sense to me. My under eyes are kind of like a, I guess kind of like a purpley brown. It's got a little bit of brown in it, but there's also some red, so it's kind of like a warm brown, whatever you guys see, but you can kind of see it's like a little bit plum, a little bit red, a little bit brown. It didn't make any sense to me to put a red, orange, or peach color corrector underneath my eyes because I already have a lot of redness around my eyes. It doesn't make any sense. I always just kind of like stayed away from color correctors, but I was recently watching Jordan Liberty's video, and I'm actually gonna link it down below because he talks a lot about this. Obviously he's Obviously he's amazing and he gives really great tips, and he talks about products, affordable and more expensive. But the reason that you would use a peach or orange color corrector underneath your eyes is because when you go in with your concealer, a lot of the darkness from your concealer is still going to show through, and it can end up looking very gray, especially if you're using a lighter concealer. I never really understood this, and I never really noticed it until I actually started using a color corrector, and it makes sense now. What it does is it kind of warms up the under eye area so that when you go in with your concealer, it brings that warmth and that life through the concealer, so you don't end up looking like you're just putting an ashy color on top, if that makes sense. I don't really know. He was great at explaining it. Like I said, I'm going to link the video down below if you want to find out more about that. I am going to be using color correctors, but I'm going to be using the tiniest amount. tiniest amount, because in my opinion, putting something super bright or super thick or just very saturated underneath your eyes makes it very difficult for you to go in with concealer afterwards, because the colors can kind of mix together and then your concealer can just end up looking orange. I'm going to be using two products. These are by BH Cosmetics. These are the Total Coverage Concealers. Also talked about this in my last video, I think. Or I talked about this in my concealer video. I'm going to be mixing peach and pink. Peach is like basically a burnt orange. So I'm going to take on the back of my hand, I'm just gonna take a little bit of that. You can see it's like a burnt orange color, very dark. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of pink just to lighten it slightly, just a little bit, that much. And then I'm using this little flat brush by MAC. This is the 242S. I'm just going to mix these on the back of my hand like that. So we've got kind of like a light orangey color. I'm gonna take a very small amount and place it right here. And that's about it right there. So I don't want to take it up too high, because obviously I have darkness all around my eyes. But if I take it up too high, then it just kind of ends up making my like lash line look suspect. And then what I'm gonna do is kind of wipe off my brush so I'm not like applying any more product, and then I'm just going to blend it downwards. And then I'm gonna take whatever's left over kind of like over here, because I have darkness on this end of my eye as well, a little bit in the corner, but I'm keeping this really sheer. So I'm gonna do that. Now what I'm gonna do is, because I have like a lot of product that's kind of like building up in areas that I don't really need it, I'm gonna take a clean flat brush, I think this is clean, and I'm just gonna kind of blend that out. Now I'm gonna take my fingers, blend over that. So I literally just want tiniest amount. So you can kind of see that it's like brightened up that area a little bit. Now before I go in with any concealer, I'm gonna go in with my foundation. And if there are any areas where like you got color corrector and you don't want it, just kind of pat it out. Sometimes I feel like I take it too much into my nose area. So now I'm gonna go in with foundation really quickly. I am going to be using the new Becca Ultimate Coverage Foundation, 24-hour foundation. I'm gonna mix Shell and Buff, because I think Buff will be a little bit too dark. These are brand new. It's very moussey, it smells like yogurt. Let me know if you guys wanna see a comparison with this and the CoverGirl foundation, if you guys saw that on my Instagram story. The color's really nice though. I mean, it's a little yellow, but I think it'll be okay. Oh God. Don't they look so much worse when, like, I have color corrector underneath my eyes, but now the rest of my face is one color? They look so bad. All right, now let's get into the concealer. So you can pretty much use any concealer that you're comfortable with, but, and you guys are probably sick of hearing about this, honestly, but my all-time favorite is Tarte Shape Tape. It's got a matte finish. It sets itself. It doesn't crease. It's just the best. So I use this for everything. I use it to highlight my face. I use it to conceal on my face. I use it, of course, to conceal underneath my eyes, and it is my absolute favorite for that. So for my skin tone right now, light sand is my favorite color. I'm gonna put about that much underneath my eyes, and I like to focus it like here, and I'm not going to take it up too far because I do have creases, natural creases underneath my eyes, which you guys can probably see, and I don't want to get creasing. So this might look like a lot. I'm going to take a tiny bit to hit that, and then obviously I'm going to highlight the rest of my face. Since we're here, you want it to be cohesive, and I kind of just place this everywhere that I have darkness, you know? And then my favorite way to blend out concealer is with a beauty sponge. You can use a beauty blender, you can use the Real Techniques makeup sponge. This is the LC Cosmetics Velvet Sponge. I like it because at the point there are a lot of these sponges out there, but some of them are just a little bit too hard. This one's my favorite. It's got nice bounce, it's soft, it's huge. The sponge itself is huge, but it just blends everything out so easily. And I'm going to start underneath my eyes and using the point to make sure that I don't bring it up too far. I'm just gonna go right over top of that color corrector, and then I like to brighten up the sides of my nose. So I'm gonna take it there as well. Make sure that you're using a light hand. And if you feel like you've taken it up too far, don't worry. Just kind of like take it one step at a time, go slow. I like the point because I'm able to get in here more easily, but if you have a hard time getting in there with a sponge, you can always use a brush. You can see how much brighter it looks. Typically, before I started using a color corrector, and I still don't all the time, but before I started doing that, I would have to go in with layers and layers and layers of concealer. And I tried to use thin layers so that it didn't look completely cakey and horrible, but you can see with the color corrector that you can see some of that like warmth coming through, so it doesn't look dead. It also adds like a little bit extra coverage so that you don't have to go in with as much concealer. I'm just gonna keep blending. This is Tarte Shape Tape, so it's Gonna set. Stop talking, Alex. Blend your concealer. And I'm sure you guys know that if you're using something underneath your eyes, you should be not necessarily highlighting. You don't have to highlight your face, but you should at least pop it in like a couple areas. Make sure that it's blended well so that it doesn't look like you just went in with like one color right underneath your eyes. You want all of your makeup to be cohesive. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of that concealer on my lids. This is just how I prep for eyeshadow, and it also just kind of like allows you to cover up all of the darkness, you know, like get in there and stuff. Doesn't that make such a difference? All right, so the next step is going to be setting underneath the eyes. I'm going to be talking about setting powders, brightening powders, but first I want to make sure that I finish off the rest of my creams. So I'm going to finish off my like cream contouring, and then I will be back. All right, so I just finished off I did a little bit of cream contouring and I cleaned up underneath my brows. So now what I'm going to do is, you can kind of still see a little bit of darkness. Now, what's irritating, oh my God. What's irritating is that I have very sunken under eyes as well. So it's not just dark. I don't have a lot of like filler underneath my eyes, if that makes sense. I don't really know what else to call it. So it just kind of like it goes back a lot, which causes shadows. So when I conceal, even after using a color corrector, even after using concealer, I still have a lot of darkness there. I like to go in with a second layer now that I have this concealer has set into my skin. So what I'm gonna do is make sure that what I have down is nice and blended now that it's been sitting. And this is always how I do it. I kind of like allow it to set. I'm gonna go in with a little bit more. Like when I say a little bit, I mean like just right there, just like a tiny little dot. What I like to do is to make sure that I'm keeping the hydration, because I am going in with a lot of product here. Where'd it go? I like to spritz my brush. I always say brush. I like to spritz my sponge with a little bit of MAC Fix Plus, just a tiny bit, and then I'll dab it on the back of my hand so that I'm not going in with way too much hydration. Because again, if you're going in with like a ton of it, it can end up causing creasing and splitting and separating. And I'm gonna focus this right where I just need a little bit extra coverage, a little more brightening. So you always wanna make sure that you're like, less is always more. You wanna make sure that you're going in with nice thin layers. If you are layering coverage, like it's the same thing with foundation. You should go in and like do your color correcting, your evening out, and then go in and conceal, or like spot conceal the areas that like really need it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, but you can actually amp up your coverage a little bit with the powder that you use. There's a lot of different under eye powders. Okay, there's the Kat Von D ones, those are great. There's Laura Mercier there, which I hate, it's very gray. There's the Kat Von D one, which I use a lot of the time if I don't feel like I need like a ton of extra brightening, but my favorite one is right here. And I actually mix this myself. I can't even tell you what is in here really. It's a lot of different setting powders, foundation powders. The reason that I mixed my own is because I used a lot of like light colored foundation powders which have coverage, and mix them in with like translucent powders or under eye brightening powders to get the color that I want. The color is perfect, and it also helps to add like a little bit extra coverage. This is just kind of like my little concoction. Personally, in my opinion, a lot of setting powders, under eye brightening powders don't really have extra coverage, even if they have like a little bit of a tint to them, which is why I felt the need to do this. Some of the ones that I think are the best, if you don't need extra coverage, but you do need something that's going to set your under eye, the Kat Von D Lock-It setting powder is excellent. I love the formula of it. The Marc Jacobs Finish Line powder is beautiful, just like smooths and brightens. So this is really a great option. This is new and I love it now. Let's see what else. Those are probably my picks. I also like the Kat Von D under eye brightening powders though. Like her powders are really, really nice. So, and those are tinted. The only problem is that the lightest color is the yellow one, and it's still a little bit dark for me when I'm this color. So you want to be careful, but maybe pick up a couple light foundation powders and just get yourself a little container. And this is from like an old skincare thing that I just cleaned out. What I would do is just kind of like scrape it with something. I don't even remember what I would use, and then just kind of like break it up. I think I use the butt of a brush. Like just make sure that you clean it so that it's not, you know, like you're not getting a bunch of bacteria in there or anything. But yeah, so that's what I did. Add a little bit more coverage. So that's what I'm going to be using. A lot of trial and error. I really like to mix things. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. And then my favorite setting brush is the MAC one. Oh shit, it's coming off. 133S. I love this. So you want to make sure that you're going in with a very small amount. So what I like to do is kind of like dip my brush in, tap it off, and then tap it in the back of the cap, or in the cap, and then just kind of like go back and forth, tapping it, picking it up, so that I don't have too much, but that the brush is nice and, you know, evenly covered. Then you want to make sure that you're all blended, no creasing, and then go into your under eye. Place it right where you need it. So hopefully you guys can see it adds like a slightly, like a little bit more coverage. It mattifies it. It keeps everything from moving. It's going to make all of this coverage last throughout the day, but I'm using a very small amount. Now I can, if I want to, go in with like a little bit more right here. And that's gonna add a little bit more brightening, a little more coverage. I'm gonna brighten up along the sides of my nose just because I like to. And then if I end up going in with like, say you end up going in with a little bit too much powder, you can always spritz your sponge again with some MAC Fix Plus. Again, tap it on the back of your hand so you're not going in with way too much moisture, and then just gently pat over it. And that's gonna kind of like help the product melt into your skin, brings a little bit moisture back to it so it doesn't end up looking powdery. But hopefully you guys can see the difference. It just looks much more finished. It obviously sets it, makes it look more matte, and it's going to keep that coverage all day long. All right guys, so that is how I conceal my horrendous dark circles. They look a lot better. This is the finished makeup. It's very simple. I wanted you to be able to actually like see my under eyes, you know, not going with like a smoky eye or anything. But they look a hell of a lot better than they did. I'll just pop in a little fresh reminder what we started out with, because it was bad. Obviously, people have different preferences when it comes to products, when it comes to, you know, skincare, hydration, when it comes to concealers, when it comes to color correcting. Do a little bit of experimenting. Hopefully some of the products that I recommended will work for you if you're looking for something new. I definitely stand by the Dermalogica eye cream that changed the way my under eye looked. It just, you really need to make sure that you are hydrating sufficiently, but not overdoing it. I think that that's a great lightweight product. I've definitely saw a huge difference when I started using it. Obviously Tarte Shape Tape, I don't know what I would do without it. It is literally my desert island product. Like, I don't know what I would do without it. I really don't. I need that coverage. If I didn't answer any of your questions, or if you have any tips and tricks for people, please leave them down in the comments down below. Obviously this is, you know, this is my technique for my skin tone, for my dark circles. Maybe yours are more blue, whatever. Just like leave any tips and tricks that you have or products that you love down below, the planes, any of that stuff in the comments. Greatly appreciate it. All right guys, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.